Tegan seemed to get the message that I wasn't interested in further elaboration. You must be thrilled to get this campaign over with and return to your beautiful betrothed. Celise is beautiful, to be sure, I replied, running both hands through my shaggy hair to push it out of my face. But what? Tegan asked. Well, we don't have much in common. She doesn't much like the outdoors or have any desire to explore the world, and I don't much care for the endless parties and balls she wants to drag me to. I wonder if we'll have anything to talk about. Draven let out a deep belly laugh. Oh, Captain Lucan is worried. He may not have anything to talk about with his betrothed. Soon he was cackling, throwing his head back in glee. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. Oh, I'm sorry, me boy, Draven said once he'd caught his breath, wiping tears from the corner of his eyes. Maybe it's me old age, but honestly, tell me, what can a woman know about anything of consequence? Well, why would you need to talk to her about anything at all? I don't think I've said more than 100 words to me own wife these 30 years. I held my tongue. I'd more easily convince a bird to swim than persuade Draven to see things my way. He's as old as my father was when he passed last year, and just as stubborn. Women are for keeping your cock warm and giving you sons, that's what I say. Lady Celise is healthy enough to bear your babes, Lucan, and she's beautiful as a painting, and wealthier than any of us could dream of being, Draven said, squeezing my shoulder and sitting back against his cot. Let that be enough. Well, I don't blame you, Lucan, Tegan put in. My wife is a blessing to us. She keeps me well-fed and well-loved. She's a great mother to my children, too. And I love jesting with her and listening to her ideas. She's clever as anything. Pfft, Draven scoffed. A clever woman? Lucan, listen to old Draven. Buy the lady whatever she wants. Plow her well and often, and smile at her from time to time, and you'll both be happy enough. I suppose you're right, I said, because I can't tell them about the countless days I've spent in utter joy just talking with Nora, or exploring the cairn and its grounds. I can't tell them how precocious she is, or about how she cried when I told her my uncle had arranged my marriage to Celise, or how she begged me to keep her as a mistress, something my father had made sure to prevent by sending her away as soon as he caught wind of our affair. A whore is a whore is a whore, son, my father said when he found me despondent after she was gone. You'll marry the Lady Celise and forget all about that kitchen wench. And once you've put a Velga boy in your wife's belly, well, you can have whatever whore you want. But Nora was no whore. She had been a servant in the cairn since I was a boy, just like her parents, and she was the first woman I'd ever savored when manhood awoke within me. Even now I feel safe and warm and full when I think of her. Course I'm right, Draven said, slapping me on the thigh and bringing me back to the moment. Now survive this bloody campaign and marry her. I promise you'll laugh at yourself later for these silly misgivings. I thanked him for the advice, attempting to sound sincere. Think of it! Worried what he'd talk about with a woman! Draven laughed. That night, it took hours for all 300 men to find a way up the cliffs. A few soldiers were scraped and bruised, but all were in one piece when we stood at the top and regrouped. By the light of the moon and our torches, we marched inland. The flatlands beyond the cliff gave way to rolling meadows until we finally reached the Keno River. Several meters across, Keno's waters, though not rapid, run deep. Just past the river lay a small village laden with darkness. Beyond the village, a dark mountain rose high into the air, covered in pine trees. I could just barely make out the color of flames dancing atop it. Mount Zaria. As the army began fording the river, Tegan caught up to me and pointed out something on the other side. A child, not older than 10, hiding in the reeds. He was carrying something shiny, reflecting the moonlight. It could have been a weapon, but he looked frightened and confused. Perfect, I thought. Just what we need. A child screaming and alerting the others. Before I could warn my men to ignore the boy, one of them fired a lighted arrow straight at him, hitting him deep in the chest. He cried out in pain just as the arrow pierced his skin, then fell into the river. As I turned to see if anyone had been alerted by the child's cry, the mountaintop lit up with dozens of flames bobbing down the mountain toward us. It was too late for our surprise attack. So we forded the river, torches ablaze. I hoped that Akar would still try his honey method. Chapter 4. Evryn. Don't cry out, he says from behind me, holding his blade to my throat. His accent is thick and foreign. He smells of sea and smoke and sweat. I freeze, raising my hands. Good, he says, lowering his blade. You are Evryn Korina, yes? I try to slow my breathing and think. He isn't Kenozarian, that much is clear. I've never heard an accent like his. Plus, I can't imagine anyone on the island being bold enough to invade us like this, not at the risk of challenging Korina Freya. So why is he here? What does he want with me? I could lie and risk angering him when he finds out the truth, or disclose my identity and risk whatever he plans to do to Evryn Korina. I decide to say nothing. I'm going to tie your hands behind your back. Please don't cry out when I move my hand. I won't harm you. You have my word. I obey and move my wrists behind my back. Aunt Tabitha, what's happening? What should I do? Still nothing. He moves his hand from my mouth and sheathes his dagger, then begins briskly tying my wrists together with rope. After testing the knot's strength a few times, he helps me to my feet and I turn to face him. Before me stands a man, slightly taller than me, with a lithe, muscular build. A plumage of yellow, red, and orange feathers sits atop his helm. Beneath, he has hair the color of rust, and a beard of the same hue, graying in places. His eyes are green, like the first leaves of spring. A flame is emblazoned across his bronze breastplate. Beneath his armor, he's wearing a mustard tunic, with fitted breeches and aged leathered boots. Along with the dagger he held to my throat, he has a bow strung across his chest and a long, curved sword in its scabbard at his side. I eye him suspiciously, unsure of what his next move is. Don't be afraid. I'm taking you down the mountain to the sea. My leader only wishes to speak with you. To speak with me? Me? He hooks his hand in the crook of my arm. Is there another way down to the sea that doesn't pass by the village? I nod and lead him down and around the mountain's northwest side. Moments turn to hours, and before I know it, we've reached the bottom of the northwestern ridge. As we leave the woods, we enter a wide clearing. The river Keno is not far off, and beyond that, the sea. He's quietly scanning the horizon, obscured as it is by the morning mist. Who are you, anyway? I ask after a beat. He seems surprised to hear me finally speak. I'm Lucan Velga, the captain of the Brangardian army, he says, bowing his head, placing his right hand on his chest and then extending it to me. So he knows our customs. I return the greeting. Army? Why have you come here? We'll make camp here tonight, he says, not answering my question. He removes his cotton neck guard and wipes the sweat from his brow before opening his leather water bag and taking a few long drinks. Having quenched his thirst, he wipes his mouth with the backside of his fist and sighs in relief. Water? He offers. I chuckle and turn to show him the rope binding my arms behind my back. Here, I'll help you. Come. When I step closer, he opens the water bag and tips it, pouring some water into my mouth, though most of it lands on my linen shirt. It's almost nightfall. We need to gather some firewood. Again, bound wrists. Right, he says, taking out his knife. Turn around? I eye him again. I'm not going to hurt you. Just turn around. I do, and he cuts the rope's knot. I think he may free me, but he ties my wrists together again in front of me. You kidnap me and then expect me to help you? I ask as he tightens the new knot. Suit yourself, he replies, briefly looking me in the eyes before looking away. The longer it takes to get this fire going, the longer we'll sit here freezing. I'm frustrated, but he's right. Nightfall is near, and it gets cold this close to the sea. There's no point in freezing to death to spite him, so I head back into the woods. The thought occurs to me that I could run, but I'm weary from the hike down the mountain and still have neither water nor food. Plus, my hands are bound, and I don't want to test his marksmanship with that bow. So I gather firewood and grumble to myself. It's not easy with bound wrists, but I manage to gather some dried grass and broken branches.